The scream tore through the tall grass like a blade through cloth. Anyone help me. The words came raw, scraped from the chest of a girl who had already spent her last strength. The river below the bluff churned dark and fast, swollen from mountain rain, its cold breath rising into the early evening air. A single figure stumbled along the bank, moccasins slipping on wet stone, braids heavy against her back. Fear rode her hard, louder than the rushing water, louder than the beating of her own heart. She was Lakota, raised on open sky and moving earth, taught since childhood to listen to wind and animal and sign. But this land had turned against her. The clay had broken under her foot, and now the river waited, hungry and wide. She tried to turn, tried to climb, but the bluff crumbled. Her shout flew again, thinner now, breaking as her heels slid into nothing. Up on the ridge, a cattleman reined his horse sharp. He had been riding fence since dawn, checking wire, counting calves, thinking only of weather and market prices and the long winter ahead. He was a man carved by sun and labor, shoulders bent from years in the saddle, hands thick with old scars. His name carried weight in these parts. Silas Crowridge. Folks said he could read land like a book and storms like a preacher reads scripture. He had learned early that hesitation could cost a life. The cry hit him hard, not as sound alone but as something deeper, older. He swung down from the horse and ran, boots thudding over dry earth and sage. When he reached the edge of the bluff, the world seemed to tilt. Below, the girl slid, fingers clawing at roots, eyes wide with terror. One more second, and the river would take her. Silas did not think. He dove. Gravel tore at his arms as he slid, momentum carrying him faster than sense. He caught her wrist just as the clay gave way. The jolt rang through bone and muscle, nearly ripping them both loose. Her body swung, weight dragging them toward the edge. For a breath, they hung between sky and water, the sound of the river roaring like a living thing beneath them. "You are safe," he said, his voice low but fierce, pitched straight into her panic. "Breathe," she gasped, lungs burning, fingers slick with mud and blood. She did not know this man. All she knew was the grip on her arm was solid as iron and warm, impossibly warm. She did as he said, one breath, then another, while he dug his free hand into the earth, searching for anything that would hold. Silas found a root thick as a wrist and wrapped his arm around it. Inch by inch, muscle screaming, he hauled them back from the edge. When at last they lay on solid ground, the sky above them felt wider than it had moments before. The girl shook, breath coming in sharp pulls, eyes fixed on nothing. Silas rolled to his knees, blocking her view of the drop. "You're safe now," he said again, slower this time, like a promise. The land had nearly swallowed her, but it had not won. Her name was Via Red Feather. It carried the strength of her people and the memory of her mother's songs. She had been sent east with others to trade dried meat and hides, but trouble had found her along the river. Men who did not listen to warnings. Men who thought fear made a person small. She had run when she could, trusting the river to hide her trail, never thinking it would turn on her too. She pushed herself upright, hands trembling. Her eyes met Silas's, dark and sharp, measuring him as she had been taught. He saw the fear there, yes, but also something else. Resolve. Pride. A will that had not broken, even when death opened its mouth. "Why did you jump?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Because you were falling?" He answered simply. In his world, that was reason enough. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain and distant smoke. Silas glanced toward the horizon. Storm was coming. He knew these clouds, knew how fast the river could rise. Staying here was not an option. He offered his hand. "Come with me. My place is not far." Vika hesitated. Trust was not given lightly. Her people had learned that lesson through blood and broken treaties. Yet her body still shook, and the land was open and dangerous. She took his hand as they walked. Silas noticed the way she favored her ankle, the way she scanned every line of grass and tree. He respected that. He spoke little, letting silence do its work. When they reached his horse, she stiffened, eyes narrowing at the animal's size. He slowed, showing her how to stand, where to place her hand. He had broken many horses, but he knew better than to rush a frightened soul. She mounted behind him, keeping space between them, posture proud even in exhaustion. The ranch came into view as the first drops of rain fell. A low house of weathered wood, a corral, cattle dark against the field. It was a hard place built by harder years. As they rode in, a sense of unease settled over Silas. He had brought trouble home with him. He felt it in his bones. Inside, he set her by the stove, gave her water, then a blanket. She studied everything, eyes never still. When thunder rolled, she flinched, then steadied herself. He saw old fear there, not just from today. "Who was chasing you?" he asked quietly. She did not answer at first. When she did, her words were careful. "Men who do not stop when told no. Men who think this land belongs only to them." Silas's jaw tightened. He knew the kind. He also knew that helping her meant crossing lines. Others preferred left sharp and clear. Outside hooves sounded in the distance, faint but growing closer. Viaka heard it too, her hand clenched in the blanket. "They followed me," she said. Silas moved to the door, eyes narrowing toward the road. The storm broke hard, rain hammering earth, turning dust to mud. Shapes appeared through the curtain of water, riders slowing as they neared the ranch. Behind him, the girl rose to her feet, fear and defiance standing shoulder to shoulder in her gaze. The river had failed to take her, but something else had come instead. Silas set his hand on the doorframe, feeling the weight of the moment settle. Whatever stepped out of that rain would change everything. The riders slowed near the fence, their shapes cutting through rain and dusk. Silas did not step outside yet. He listened. Hoofbeats, leather creak, low voices carried by wind. Men who rode like they belonged wherever they pleased. He had seen that posture before in saloons and cattle auctions, places where law bent for the loudest voice. Behind him, Viaka stood straight, though her hands trembled. She did not move closer to the door, nor did she retreat. Her chin lifted, eyes fixed on Silas, waiting to see what kind of man he truly was. Among her people, moments like this decided stories told for generations. Silas reached for his coat and shrugged it on, slow and deliberate. "You stay here," he said. "No matter what you hear," she answered softly. "I will not hide like a child." Her words were calm, but her shoulders were tight. Before Silas could reply, a voice rang out from the yard. "Crowridge, we know you're home." Silas stepped onto the porch, rain soaking his hat brim. The yard light flickered, throwing long shadows. 3 riders sat their horses, mud on their boots, eyes sharp and searching. The one in front had a heavy build and a voice that carried command. His name was Rook Calder, a man known along the trail for taking what he wanted and daring anyone to stop him. "Evening," Silas said. "Storm's got bad timing." Rook smiled without warmth. "We're looking for a girl. Runs like a deer. Wears braids." He let the description hang, eyes sliding past Silas toward the house. "Pass through here?" Silas leaned against the post, blocking the view. "Haven't seen anyone but cattle and rain?" Rook's gaze hardened. He swung down from his horse, boots sinking into mud. "We tracked her to the river. Tracks came up this way." He took another step forward. "You're not known for lying, Crowridge." Silas met his stare. "Then maybe you should listen when I say move along." Thunder cracked overhead. For a moment, only rain spoke. Rook studied Silas, measuring him, then glanced at his men. One of them laughed under his breath. "You always did like trouble," Rook said finally. "Guess we'll take a look around?" He started toward the porch. That was when the door behind Silas opened. Viaka stepped into the light. Her blanket slipped from her shoulders, revealing soaked buckskin, the mark of her people stitched along the seam. Her hair hung loose now, dark against her face, eyes bright with fire. The rain seemed to pause around her as if the land itself took notice. The yard went still. She did not scream this time. She did not run. She spoke, voice clear and strong. I told you to leave me. You did not listen. Rook's expression shifted, surprise flashing before something uglier took its place. There you are, he said. You caused quite the chase. Silas felt the air change. He stepped slightly in front of her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his presence. She did not step back. These men do not hear words, Silas murmured. Only consequences. Wiaka's gaze never left Rook. Among my people, she said, men who hunt women are named cowards. They are not welcomed by earth or sky. One of Rook's men spat into the mud. Savages in sermons, he muttered. Silas's jaw tightened. That's enough, Rook raised a hand, silencing his men. He studied Wiaka with open hunger, then looked back at Silas. This isn't your affair. Hand her over, and we walk away clean. Silas laughed once, sharp and humorless. You're standing on my land, making demands. In a storm? He shook his head. Ride out. Rook's smile vanished. You always were stubborn. He turned his horse slightly, as if considering retreat, then paused. This isn't finished, Crowridge. Storms pass. They mounted and rode off into the rain, their silhouettes swallowed by dark. The sound of hooves faded, but the weight of their promise lingered. Wiaka exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath since the river. Silas closed the door and leaned his back against it. For a long moment, neither spoke. You could have stayed inside, he said at last. She met his eyes. I will not live by hiding. Not again. Silas nodded. Fair enough. They sat by the stove as rain hammered the roof. The storm stretched on, turning night thick and restless. Silas poured coffee, set a cup before her. She sniffed it, then took a cautious sip. Why are they after you? He asked gently. She stared into the cup, seeing something far away. My father was Iron Cloud, she said. A man who refused to sell land for promises. He believed the earth remembers every footprint. When he died, others thought his daughters would be easier to bend. Silas listened. He knew that story too well, just with different faces. I was taking goods to trade, she continued. Rook Calder saw me as something to claim. When I refused, he laughed. When I ran, he hunted. Silas's hands clenched. Calder had crossed many lines, but this one cut deep. You're not safe here, he said honestly. Not if they keep coming. Wiaka lifted her head. Safety is not a place. It is a choice. She looked around the small room. Why did you help me, Silas Crowridge? He hesitated. The truth was simple and heavy. Because once, long ago, he had not helped. Because the land still whispered that failure to him at night. He did not say that, because no one deserves to be taken, said instead. The storm eased near dawn, leaving the world washed and cold. Silas saddled his horse early, eyes scanning the horizon. Tracks marked the yard where Rook had stood. Proof. Warning. Wiaka came out wrapped in her blanket. I will not bring ruin to your door, she said. I can leave when the light breaks. Silas shook his head. Leaving alone would be worse. The trail is open. He paused, then added, There is an old trading post north of here, run by a man called Stone Bear. He owes me a favor. Wiaka studied him, weighing trust like a blade in hand. And Rook Calder? Silas looked toward the distant hills. He will not forget. Men like him never do. As the sun climbed, the land revealed itself again, peaceful, deceptive, somewhere out there. Rook Calder was planning his next move. Wiaka mounted the horse Silas brought for her, posture steady, eyes forward. Whatever waited ahead, she would meet it standing. Silas swung into his saddle beside her. The road stretched north, long and uncertain. Behind them, the ranch stood quiet, but the calm felt thin, like ice over deep water. Neither spoke as they rode. Both knew this was only the beginning. The trail north narrowed as it followed the bend of the creek. Grass still heavy with rain. Silas rode ahead, eyes scanning ground and sky, while Viaka kept pace beside him. Neither spoke much. Words felt too small for what moved beneath the surface. The land carried memory here. Every hoofprint stayed longer than it should. By midday they reached a rise where the prairie opened wide. Silas reined in and studied the distance. Smoke curled thin against the horizon, not from his ranch, not from the trading post either. His jaw tightened. "Someone's burning," Viaka said quietly. Silas nodded. Could be a signal. Could be nothing. He did not believe in nothing. They pressed on, tension riding with them like a third shadow. Along the way, Silas spoke of the Northlands, how cattle drives once crossed these plains in endless lines, of towns that rose fast and fell faster. He spoke of lawmen who came and went, of men like Rook Calder who thrived in the gaps between rules. Rook was not alone in his hunger. He ran with others who believed strength made right, men who called themselves settlers but left only scars. Silas had crossed paths with them before, years back, when a range dispute turned ugly. He had survived by knowing when to stand and when to disappear. Viaka listened, absorbing every word. In return, she spoke of her people's camps along the river, of stories carried by elders, of the belief that courage was not loud but steady. She spoke of Ironcloud, her father, who taught her that fear was a signal, not a master. As afternoon wore on, they reached a stand of cottonwoods. The air there felt wrong, too quiet. Silas raised a hand. They stopped. Tracks cut across the path. Fresh, several horses. Heavy riders. Silas dismounted and knelt, fingers brushing mud. "Rooksmen," he said under his breath. "They're circling." Viaka's grip tightened on the reins. "Then they are close, yes, and they want us to know it." They moved into the trees, leading the horses by hand. Silas knew the land here well enough to vanish if needed, but disappearing would leave questions unanswered. And questions gave men like Rook reason to keep hunting. As they moved, another presence watched from afar. North of them, beyond a low ridge, rode a man wrapped in a dark coat, eyes sharp as a hawk's. His name was Gideon Frost, a hired tracker known for finding what others could not. Rook Calder paid him well, and Gideon asked no questions. Tracks were tracks. People were prey. Gideon studied the ground, noting Silas's careful steps, the lighter print beside him. A woman, strong stride, not afraid. That interested him. Back in the cottonwoods, Silas felt it before he saw it. A shift. A bird taking flight too fast. He turned, scanning the trees. "We are being watched," Viaka said. Silas did not deny it. "Stay close." They broke into a clearing just as voices rose ahead. Two riders blocked the far side, rifles slung low. One was broad and red-faced, the other lean with eyes that never rested. They smiled when they saw Silas. "Crowridge," the lean one said. "Always riding where you shouldn't." Silas kept his voice calm. "Move aside," the broad man laughed. "Or what?" Before Silas could answer, another voice cut through the air. "Enough." Gideon Frost stepped from the trees behind them, rifle resting easy in his hands. He studied Silas with professional interest, then shifted his gaze to Viaka. "You made good time," he said to Silas. "Hard to follow in rain. But you left a story behind." Silas's muscles tensed. Frost was dangerous in a quiet way. "What does Calder want?" he asked. Gideon shrugged. "He wants what he wants. My job is to bring people together." Viaka stepped forward, her voice steady. "I will not go with you." Gideon tilted his head. "That's unfortunate." The standoff stretched, thick as heat. Silas weighed distances, angles, chances. 3 men visible, maybe more hidden. He could fight, but fighting would end things here, fast and bloody. That would serve Rook. Silas lifted his hands slowly. "Let us pass. There is no need for this to turn worse." Gideon smiled faintly. "Every turn looks worse from the start." Before anything more could be said, a shout echoed from the ridge. Another rider appeared, waving an arm. "Smoke to the west," he called Lawmen. That gave Gideon pause. Law meant questions. Questions slowed things down. He lowered his rifle slightly. This isn't finished, Crowridge. You and the girl are running against a tide. Tides always win. He stepped back, signaling his men to move. They melted into the trees, leaving silence behind. Silas exhaled, not relaxing yet. They mounted quickly and rode hard, not stopping until the sun dipped low again. By nightfall, they reached the outskirts of the trading post. It stood battered but alive, lanterns glowing warm against dark. Stone Bear's place, a meeting ground for many paths. Stone Bear himself stepped out to greet them. A broad man with silver threaded through his hair, eyes deep with knowledge. Silas, he said, you bring trouble with you, like an old friend. Silas managed a tired smile. Then you owe me a drink. Stone Bear's gaze shifted to Viaka. And you bring strength. Come inside. Inside the post, whispers moved faster than firelight. People noticed Wayaka's presence. Some looked away. Others watched with open curiosity. News traveled fast in places like this. Silas spoke quietly with Stone Bear, explaining enough to earn concern but not fear. Stone Bear listened, then nodded. Rook Calder has been stirring things up, he said, buying loyalty with coin and threats. He wants control of roots, land, people. Your stand puts you in his path, Viaka overheard and stepped closer. He will not stop. Stone Bear met her gaze. No. Men like him never do. Outside, Gideon Frost watched the trading post from a distance, face unreadable. He knew patience. He knew how pressure worked. Far away, Rook Calder sat by a fire, sharpening a blade, listening to reports. His smile was thin and certain. The land had chosen sides now, whether it knew it or not, and the storm was only gathering. The trading post did not sleep that night. Lantern light burned late, voices low and guarded. Outside, wagons creaked as travelers chose to leave before dawn, sensing trouble in the air. Trouble had a way of announcing itself long before it arrived. Silas felt it settle in his chest like a coming storm. Viaka sat near the fire, mending a tear in her sleeve with careful hands. Her calm unsettled him more than fear would have. She moved with purpose, as if she had already accepted what lay ahead. Stone Bear watched her from across the room, his expression thoughtful. You carry yourself like someone who knows this land listens, Stone Bear said. Viaka did not look up. It does. People forget that Silas stepped outside to breathe. The night was clear now, stars sharp above the prairie. He circled the post, checking shadows, listening for hooves. Every sound felt louder than it should. He knew Rook Calder was not done. Men like Rook never stopped when challenged. They only changed their approach, from the ridge beyond the post. Gideon Frost lay flat against the ground, glassing the buildings with patient eyes. He counted lanterns, noted guards, measured distance. He respected Silas Crowridge. That made the hunt more interesting. Respect did not change the outcome. It only sharpened it. Back inside, Stone Bear spoke in a low voice to Silas and Viaka. Rook has allies here, he said. Not everyone, but enough. He pays well. He promises protection. Protection from what? Silas asked. From him, Stone Bear replied. Viaka's needle paused. Fear bought with coin is still fear, she said. It does not last. Stone Bear nodded slowly. Still, it can cost lives before it fades. As dawn approached, a rider arrived hard and fast, horse lathered, eyes wild. He brought word of a cattle drive turned away, of fences cut, of a warning carved into a post near the river. Rook's mark. Silas read the sign in the man's face. He wants you to come to him, Stone Bear said. Or he wants to draw us out, Silas replied. Both can be true. By midday, tension pulled tight. Some at the post argued to hand Viaka over, claiming it would restore peace. Others stood firm, unwilling to trade a person for quiet. The post became a mirror of the land itself, split by fear and resolve. Viaka listened to it all without flinching. When the voices rose too high, she stood. I did not ask for this fight, she said, her words carrying across the room. But I will not be the price you pay to avoid it. If I must face Rook Calder, I will do so standing. Silas felt a surge of pride and worry twist together. You won't face him alone, he said. Stone Bear raised a hand. There is another way. North of here lies Broken Mesa. Narrow passes, high ground. If Rook moves, it will be there. The land favors those who know it. Silas understood. A place where strength alone would not decide things. They prepared quietly. Word spread fast, but not all of it true. That confusion worked in their favor. By late afternoon, Silas and Viaka rode out with a small group Stone Bear trusted. They took the long route, using dry washes and cover, moving like shadows. Gideon Frost followed, always just far enough back to stay unseen. He admired the choice of terrain. It spoke of experience. It also narrowed options. He smiled to himself. Rook Calder rode with more men than needed, confidence riding ahead of him. He believed in numbers, in pressure, in breaking wills before bodies. He had broken towns that way. A cattleman and a Lakota girl would not stop him. As evening fell, clouds gathered again, heavy and low. Wind whispered through rock and brush. Broken Mesa rose before them, its dark outline cutting the sky. The land felt ancient here, watching. Silas halted the group. From here on, quiet, he said. Every step matters. They moved into the pass, walls closing in, sounds swallowed by stone. Viaka felt the earth beneath her feet, steadying her. Her father's voice echoed in memory, reminding her that courage walked hand in hand with patience. From above, a small rock shifted. Silas froze. Too late, a shout rang out, followed by the thunder of hooves. Rook's men poured into the mouth of the pass, blocking retreat. Torches flared, casting wild light across stone. Rook Calder rode forward, his grin sharp. You ran well, he called. But every path ends. Silas stepped into the light, meeting him head-on. Not this one. Gideon Frost appeared on the ridge, rifle resting easy. The trap was set from all sides now. The air hummed with held breath. Viaka moved beside Silas, her presence firm. This land remembers, she said. What you do here will follow you. Rook laughed, but it sounded thin. Spare me the stories. Thunder rolled overhead, closer now. The first drops of rain fell, darkening stone, turning dust to slick mud. Torches hissed. Horses snorted, uneasy. Silas felt the moment stretch, fragile and sharp. One move would tip everything. He glanced at Viaka, saw no fear there, only resolve. He realized then that whatever happened next would change them both. For better or worse, the wind rose, carrying the smell of rain and earth. Broken Mesa seemed to lean in, waiting, and somewhere between heartbeats. The world held its breath. Rain fell hard now, turning the pass into slick stone and shadow. Rook Calder's men shifted uneasily as thunder cracked above Broken Mesa. Torches sputtered, their light breaking apart in the downpour. The land itself seemed to push back, narrowing the space, dulling sound, making every breath loud. Silas did not reach for his rifle. He stood still, hands open, voice steady. This ends tonight, Rook, not the way you think. Rook sneered, though his horse danced beneath him. You don't get to decide endings. Viaka stepped forward before Silas could stop her. The rain soaked her hair, plastered buckskin to her shoulders, but she stood tall. You came to claim what does not belong to you, she said. Land, people, fear, none of it holds here. Rook opened his mouth to answer, but another voice cut through the rain. Enough. Gideon Frost slid down from the ridge, boots scraping stone. He moved with care, rifle lowered, eyes on Rook. The moment shifted. Men noticed. Horses sensed it. Rook turned, anger flashing. What are you doing? Gideon met his stare. This has gone too far. Law is riding this way. Stone Bear sent word. Tracks do not lie, and neither do witnesses. You push now, you lose more than coin. Rook laughed, sharp and brittle. "You're paid to finish this." "I'm paid to find people," Gideon replied. "Not to bury myself for another man's pride." Silence stretched. Rain drummed. Rook looked around and saw doubt where loyalty had been. He saw men thinking of their own skins, of rope and jail, of winter nights behind bars. Silas spoke again, calm as ground. "Walk away. You still can." Rook's face hardened, then cracked. He weighed the pass, the rain, the men, the waiting law. For the first time, the certainty that had carried him faltered. He spat into the mud. "This isn't over," he said, but the words lacked weight now. He wheeled his horse, signaling retreat. One by one, his men followed, slipping away into the storm, their torches dying one by one. Gideon Frost watched them go, then turned to Silas and Viaka. "Your trail ends cleaner than most," he said. "Don't waste it." He vanished into the rain. Leaving only the sound of water and wind, Broken Mesa breathed again. They did not linger. By dawn, Lawmen rode in, drawn by word and witness. Rook Calder was taken days later at a river crossing, his power broken by his own overreach. Some of his men scattered. Others faced their choices. The land kept moving, as it always did. At the trading post, Stone Bear welcomed them back with quiet relief. The tension that had gripped the place eased. People spoke openly again. Trade resumed. The post felt like a meeting ground once more, not a fault line. Viaka stood outside at sunset, watching the sky turn gold. Silas joined her, hands resting easy at his sides. "You could stay," he said, "or go where you choose." She smiled softly. "Choice is the gift," she said. "My father believed that." Word came from the north that Viaka's people had reclaimed a stretch of riverbank, recognized at last by those who had long ignored them. It was not everything, but it was a beginning. Stone Bear helped broker fair trade, names put to paper. Promises watched closely. Silas returned to his ranch with a lighter step. The fences were mended. The cattle settled. The land felt quieter, as if approval had been given. He found that the nights no longer carried the same old whisper of regret. Viaka visited often, sometimes to trade, sometimes simply to sit and listen to the wind. She taught Silas words from her language, names for birds and stars. He showed her how to read clouds for weather, how to track by shadow when prints faded. Respect grew easy between them, rooted and steady. One morning, as frost silvered the grass, Viaka stood by the river where it had nearly taken her life. She breathed deep, then placed a small bundle at the bank. A thank you to the water for letting her go. Silas watched from a distance, understanding without words. They rode together often after that, not because they had to, but because the road felt right shared. The land stretched wide and open, full of work and story. Fear no longer chased them. Memory walked beside them instead, a reminder of what had been faced and survived. Rook Calder became a cautionary tale, told low in saloons. Gideon Frost drifted on, tracker to the last, carrying the quiet knowledge that sometimes walking away was the truest mark of strength. As for Silas Crowridge and Via Caluda, their names traveled on a different current, not shouted, not carved in warning, but spoken with respect. A cattleman who chose conscience, a Lakota woman who stood her ground. On a clear evening, with stars rising and the prairie breathing slow, Silas turned to Viaka and said, "You're safe here." She looked at him, eyes reflecting firelight and sky. "We are safe," she corrected gently. The wind carried the sound of the river, steady and calm. The land listened, and this time it approved.